All right, guys, welcome back. Glad to have you guys. Today we're going to cover the AR400. If you didn't see the sprint video, we already covered the sprint, and today we're going to cover the AR400. So first off, I'm going to introduce my friend and partner in this, Kevin Struxma, the Regional Service Manager.
Good morning. I'll be assisting John today.
So Kevin's going to be diving into some more of the technical aspects of the machine, and we're going to just get started. We're going to start by just kind of walking around the machine. We'll take you guys with us. We'll hit some of the features that maybe aren't so visible or noticeable. And we'll start, and we'll, like I said, you guys are just going to jump with us the whole time. So as you can see, something that we've always talked about, like I said, if you saw the sprint one, we talk about powder coat and quality of machine. As I mentioned in the sprint one, nothing that OMC puts together or builds or puts out there is paint. Everything is powder coat. Unless it's some sort of pump or something like that we can't run through powder coat, it is 100% powder coat. So longevity of the machine, right? If you ever wanted to resell value one of these machines, they clean up really, really well, and they hold together really well. Things to look for and pay attention to: always build quality. OMC overbuilds everything. We're a firm believer in strength and steel, and we're a firm believer in horsepower for, once again, reliability to give back to you and just overall performance. So as we walk through, I'll hit some of those things, but just things to talk about. So first off, you'll see that we have hair glass, and that is something that we talked about in the last one too on the sprint, was hair glass. So this is 1/2 inch thick glass with stainless steel trim, no longer knocking windows out, no longer cracking, breaking windows. Even this big window, you see this big side window right here and this big front window, I've only seen one break, and it was because it was being towed down the highway and maybe 60, 70 miles an hour, and another truck driving the opposite way, and a rock came flying and cracked the front window. That's the only one. I've not seen one break or crack in the field yet. So once again, talking about these kind of things for you to just jump in a machine and run and not worry about busting out windows. Windows are expensive. If you change these windows constantly, shoot, I don't even know what this window would run, but probably $200 to $400, something like that, if it was a standard window. But the hair glass windows we put in, and it's standard, it's a standard feature, in order to make sure that you guys can just run and keep running in the field real fast. So right here is where your radiator is and pulls for the airflow. And what you'll notice is, and I'm going to show this on a video, is when this bin lifts up in the air, the reversing fan actually kicks on. So material will build up on here, and it creates heat for a lot of these machines. And we're the only company in the industry that when this thing lifts up, we reverse our fan automatically, and it'll blow back. It'll blow out all that material right off the screen and then right off the radiator also. So something that a lot of people don't know that we have is this little switch right here. What this switch does is it's an electric over hydraulic pump that allows us to lift and get up under the or lift the bin completely in order to access the engine. So what we'll do is we'll lift it all the way up, and then we'll show you guys access to the full machine, to the inside of the engine. But if you didn't want to jump in the cab, start it, right? If you wanted to keep yourself, or maybe you had multiple people and you just wanted to lift it solo, you could lift it right here. Maybe there's some sort of function issue inside the cab and you wanted to manually lift it, you can lift it right here. So we'll lift it all the way up. All right, guys, so now that we have the bin up and we got our safety bar in place, just in case you want to crawl in there, you always want to make sure that you put the safety bar in place. But you'll notice if you bought a machine in the past, you might have a Cat engine. This is a Cummins Stage 5. And the reason we went to the Cummins, we've had a relationship with Cummins for a really long time. We've had a solid relationship with them, just as we do with Cat. But Cummins allowed us to go to Stage 5 to keep us ahead of the curve of what's to come with emissions. So great package, 148 horsepower, plenty of power, plenty of torque. to move this machine, whether it's loaded or unloaded. 30 miles an hour forward, 30 miles an hour backwards, right? This is our power plant, and this is what we're using to get that done. All right, well, we're gonna have Kevin jump in and talk about some of the engine features and some of the pumps and some more mechanical pieces that are tied to this machine. So, Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the machine?
So on this machine, we're running a 45 cc load sense pump, which is running pretty much all your functions in the cab, which runs up to a valve, which is in the center of the frame up here. Also, we're running a 100 cc hydrostat, which is running our H1 heavy duty wheel motors, which is one of the best wheel motors you can get in the industry right now. Also at this, you run a traction control, which helps with the traction. And as John was saying earlier on the reversing fan, there's a limit switch here, which is allowing it to kick on and off when you lift the bin.
So that's awesome. Once again, like I said, guys, we're not just throwing parts on a machine. We're trying to build the best, most efficient, the heaviest kind of most reliable machine that we can for you guys. So one thing that you guys will notice is we are full air ride. You'll notice on the OMC and our competitors versus our competitors run, sometimes they'll run airbag as support or a helper, and they're still running leaf springs. We're running full air ride, and the reliability of the bags is insane, and they ride really, really well. And if you notice, this is called an AR400, just like we have an AR450. AR stands for air ride, and then 400 designates the amount of cubic feet we're able to carry inside the bin. So air ride, 400 cubic feet. That's how we get to what we call the machine. We'll bring you in. We're going to talk about. I'll talk to you about the center pivot. You know, in the older OMCs, they did not have a center pivot, so they would only they basically the only movement in the rear, or the rear axle, if you would, was up and down. And now we have side to side. So now we have flex. This tire can come up, that tire can free float down, and it gives you a lot more traction and just easy reliability, or not reliability. It gives you a lot more drivability in the field, is what I meant to say. And when they made that change, the machine not only steers better, but like I said, just floats over obstacles and any sort of uneven ground a lot better than it normally would. One thing that you guys will notice, there's a steering bar right here. And as of this year, 2021, rear steer is standard. So you don't have to use it, but it's standard if you want to use it. All right, all right, guys. So
one thing is, I'm going to jump in real quick.
Oh,
one thing that we didn't go over on the engine was the after treatment on the Stage 5 is a lot smaller, more compact. There's more room. You're not piling a whole bunch of stuff into a small space. There's a lot more room now with the Stage 5.
Awesome. Thanks for jumping in, Kevin. As we were talking about the rear pivot, this machine now has a rear pivot, and it's the whole rear axle, if you were, was redesigned. And it was redesigned so we can add rear steer. So turning inside of a row, right, one fluid movement, there's not one machine that can do it. Now we have the ability to adjust rear steer, and I'll show you guys that in the cab if you want to do it. So you don't have to use the rear steer, but moving away from the elevator, right? A little more fluid. When you pull into that elevator, a lot of times guys will hit the elevator and you know, mess it up as they go. With the rear steer, you're able to move a little more fluid away from the elevator. And then once again, while you're in the field, you have a little more adjustability and steering with the rear steer, driving into other rows, and just a lot more flexibility of moving around. Another thing that you guys want to keep a lookout for is the flotation tires. The flotation tires are an option. So if you notice, the front tire is our standard tire. And you see this is, we call it a sand tire or flotation tire. This is an option that anytime a machine goes to Australia, they get. Our demo had it last year. But if you need a little more flotation, it's a little wider tire, a little heavier grip tire, you can get this as an option if you request it. So if you haven't seen that before, that's what this is. All right, go ahead. So we jumped over to the other side of the machine, and this is our service side, right? There's a few service points on the other side of the machine, but for your daily or every other day, depending on what's going out. Diesel, if you need to top off DEF, this is your whole side that you're going to do that on. If you notice on the Sprint, it was the same thing. We have one side where you're going to cover all your serviceable items. So right here we have our DEF tank, and the DEF tank is 5 gallons. It's right here. It's got a blue little handle. The consumption of DEF, once again, I don't know the exact consumption, but it's not as much. Everybody's always scared of DEF. The consumption of DEF on the Sprint and the Shuttle is very, very minimal. I'll try to get you an exact number, but I don't know what that is right now. But it's very, very minimal. We have a 45-gallon diesel tank and a 45-gallon hydraulic tank. There is a gauge inside the cab for the diesel tank and also the DEF tank. So you can monitor those from the cab, and we'll show you guys that. We have our flapper here. This is kind of go ahead. What do you got?
Your hydraulic gauge is right here on the side. It's not actually.
Sight gauge. Now, if it's low, does it throw red?
Yes.
Low oil?
This will throw a code on the screen if it has low oil.
So if you heard him, if you see a low oil flash on the screen, that means low hydraulic oil. And then you check it with your sight gauge right here. And then making the necessary adjustments. Auger machine, right? And variable augers. So you see the augers right here. It's not just on off. You have an option to lock them in to pull material from the back of the machine to the front of the machine. But it's also variable. So the lighter that you pull on the augers, the slower the augers will go. The heavier you pull on the augers, the faster they will go. That allows you to fill this 400 cubic feet to its maximum amount. So you have a lot of functionality. Changes that people didn't notice until we made them was the hydraulic cylinders in a different place. The original design, the hydraulic cylinder was actually blocking view. We redesigned that, so now it's out of your way. Your visibility is better when you're inside the cab looking back. And then we have a nice big flapper here. Good drivers, if they want to maximize their load, they'll actually open this up a little bit when they're filling the bin, and it just gives a little bit more cubic feet inside there. Allows them to fill it up a little bit more. So just a little fun tip, fun fact. All right, guys, let's jump into the cab and take a look at the features inside the cab. So first off, we'll start on the left. You guys will notice a radio, Bluetooth radio. It also picks up AM and FM. Your USB auxiliary ports if you want to charge a phone or plug in a phone for some tunes. You have just a standard little phone holder or whatever you want to hold. Your AC controls are right there. Your air conditioning is right there. One feature that you might have saw right when I walked in was the left-hand reverser. The left-hand reverser was our original thought. OMC, we know that most of the tractors in these machines, most of the tractors in the industry have left-hand reversers. So we wanted something that felt natural, something that was easy for you guys to just jump in and understand that, hey, forward is forward, reverse is reverse, right? Center is neutral. So we put that in a couple years ago, and we think that works pretty good. We do have a working horn once we start it on, so if you ever need to honk at somebody, you can go right ahead. And then we have our main controls, which is our screen and your control pad, and then our paddles. I'll show you which way and how those function, and there's actually a little diagram right here of how they function. Right behind that, we have an armrest with storage. So if you need to throw anything in there, you want to throw a little snack or lunch, you can throw it right in there. And then just overall the build quality, right? Everything's real nice, put together, snug. It's a real quiet cab. I actually did a sound test at one time. At the time I was driving a 2014 F350, and the decibels of driving this machine and then driving my truck the same area was almost identical. So pretty neat, pretty quiet. We have lights, we have night lights, and then a standard light. And then this is a backlight. You'll see that kick on right there. So, all right, well, let's go ahead and start the machine up. So we're running. Once again, we give this warning, letting people know Never work on the machine unless the engine's off and the machine is properly supported. So the machine will not run, go forward, backwards, do any functions unless you accept that. So we accept that, and then this is our main page. You can see here. Focus in on that. There we go. So you can see fuel. Here's our depth, our RPMs, our settings. We do have traction control if you want to lock the rear axle. Lock it, you can lock it. We have counters. So how many times has it been dumped today? The current total, and then the total. So you can reset those. Reset current if you want. Should reset. There you go. Resets it. So pretty neat. I talked about the reversing fan in the beginning. So the reversing fan is set up on a timer, but if you want to manually purge the reversing fan, you can press this button. You'll see an actual fan icon right there. It means that the reversing fan is reversed and blowing out any junk that's inside of that radiator. Blinkers, hazards, right? Those kick on. Your high and low. So your rabbit turtle. You can see the moment I press it, it'll go turtle right there. Press it again, rabbit. Okay. Lights. Pressurize the cab. Load mode, which load mode I probably should explain. Load mode for us allows you guys to reverse the shuttle when you're going up to mate up with the reservoir cart, and then it doesn't. What it allows you to do is set how much pressure you want on the reservoir cart without pushing the reservoir cart. So load mode is really cool. Works really awesome. And what I'll do is I'll show it to you also, and then decrease and increase, and then our seat turnaround, and then reverse steering. So when I press left here, you'll notice that we're reversing our steering. Now I'm looking back on the machine, so as I drive backwards, if I go ahead and hit load mode, you'll see the load mode bar pop on right there. You see that? Focus in on that. There we go. So load mode on, if I increase it, you'll see that bar increase. Now that's increasing the amount of pressure that I'm going to put on the reservoir cart. So the higher I raise that, the more pressure I'm putting on the reservoir cart. What it allows it to do is to mate with the reservoir cart without pushing it, and you're able to just continue rolling and continue unloading your load. Okay. At that point, if I want to turn back around, say I'm done loading, and I want to turn back around, I can. I just need to once again come back down here and reverse my steering again, and around I go. Okay. So that's how that works. I'm going to go ahead and reverse one more time, just so you guys can see. So you're not doing any foot function, nothing going on right there. All right, so unload augers. You'll see your augers right here. If I go back up there, you'll see them spin. Forward or backwards. And then, as I told you, you can lock in the augers and they will just pull. Pretty cool. All right, if I come back down, you'll see tank up. So I pull that, obviously the tank's going to continue to go up as I'm dumping, right? Got full access into the engine, even though I'm basically going to be looking at my elevator as I'm dumping. And then back down, forward for down. So now some of you guys are going to wonder, what is this, right? This is our rear steer. So our rear steer, when I hit the rear steer, it's going to move the rear wheels. So this is something completely independent to the front steer. And when I do that, you'll see it turn. Oh, my parking brake's on. When I do that, you'll see the rear tires turn. And that actuates the rear steer, okay? So now you say, John, how do I center those wheels? Well, there's a button that I can hit that centers them dead center. So once I mess with the rear steer here, if I mess with it and those wheels are turning, you'll see a red button right there. That is my self-center. Okay, so you have your paddle, and then when I want to self-center, I just press this button right here. All right, guys, so that is our AR400. We'll show you the AR500 someday. We're going to show you the AR450 next. But one thing, like I said in the beginning of the video, things that you guys need to pay attention to are that this machine is built not only to run hard, long days, right? We overbuild everything. We have more metal, the airbag suspension, the radiator, the engine, the higher horsepower engine. Those things are built for you, right? They're put in place for you in order to drive a machine. You want to drive it 12-hour days, no problem, right? You want to run it 2 12-hour shifts, that's up to you. But it's built, the machine's built to be ran and ran over and over and over again and be reliable and strong. That's what OMC stands for, and that's what they're about. And you'll notice that, like I said, from the frame, the chassis, to the suspension, to the engine, to the inside of the cab, the way how comfortable it is. Like I mentioned in the earlier video, I did a decibel test on the cab versus a 2014 F350 pickup, and the decibels were almost identical, driving the same route. So the cab itself is so comfortable, it allows an operator to stay in there longer without getting out, without feeling like he's tired. Those are the things that we give back to you. So thanks for being here. We appreciate you guys being here. We hope you learned something. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys on the next one.